Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this ReggameToDcom video we're going to be discussing and analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up over the past 24 or so hours. We're going to be starting things out with Nvidia and the Star Wars themed Titan graphics cards, which I will admit looks rather snazzy. Then we'll talk further about the Kaby Lake G series processors from Intel, but this one does have a bit of a twist, as viewers yesterday will know. They are powered, graphically at least, by Radeon GPUs from, of course, AMD. Some specifications and some benchmarks have emerged, and now that I've had some time to kind of go over those details, I figure we can talk about that in this very video. And then we'll finish off with the Xbox One X, specifically the sales forecast, and also a small update concerning Microsoft's plans to pursue exclusive titles, because the head honchos there at Xbox have decided to illuminate us of their particular plans. But as I said, first things first, the Titan XP Collector's Edition Star Wars cards. Now, they actually are listing them as Titan X, but essentially they are Titan XPs. The good news is they still cost $1,200, if you can consider that good news. In other words, they're not adding additional markup for the cards. The other piece of news for people who already own a Titan XP graphics card, the GPUs are identical in terms of performance, so there is no sneaky upclocks, there's no additional RAM, there's no additional memory bandwidth because of higher RAM clocks or GPU clocks, the amount of ROPs, CUDA cores, everything is exactly identical. The primary difference comes from the coolers themselves, and there's two different versions. One is obviously a colour scheme to show your affiliation with the Jedi Order. The second one would be the Galactic Empire edition. And as I said, the two cards, aside from the colour schemes, which really comes down to the LEDs in the GPUs, really are identical. However, the packaging between them is a little bit different, and of course the colouring as well of the shrouds is slightly different, but really it comes down to the glow and the packaging of the cards, but everything else is basically identical. And I do suspect some people are going to go crazy and maybe buy both GPUs or have all of them, just simply because, well, you know, they're Star Wars and they're collector's editions, and, well, you know, people like to do this stuff. So, what about the AMD and Intel collaboration, which of course was making people absolutely go crazy yesterday when it was announced by Intel and AMD jointly? This is part of the 8th generation Intel Core family, and not only does it have an Intel Core H processor, but also features HBM2 memory and also an AMD Radeon GPU. In other words, essentially you're looking at an Intel processor with Vega, and it's all part of the same discrete processor package. So now, as I said, the dust is somewhat cleared, and I've had time to go over previous leaks and some benchmarks, and kind of now we can start knowing what was actually false, what was accurate. And honestly, it's looking, obviously this is not finalized information from Intel themselves or AMD themselves, so please don't take this as, you know, 100% accurate, but it looks like these processors are going to actually be pretty damn impressive. How impressive? Well, it's certainly not, of course, going to be able to compete with, let's say, a Vega 56 graphic card, or even a mobile GPU, of course, something like a laptop which has like a GTX 1080, you know, a mobile GTX 1080. But still, they are looking fairly impressive. So they are based on an MCM design, that's multi-chip modules, and from what I can understand, they have a couple of very important distinctive differences and features. The first is that there are 24 compute units. This means a grand total of 1,536 stream processors. Each compute unit, for those who don't know, has 64 stream processors. Clock rates, however, are going to be between 1000 MHz and 1190 MHz. There are a couple of different parts available, and obviously all this stuff will appear on screen. The 694E is the lower performance part, which is essentially a 20% reduction compared to the 694C. What about memory? Because obviously that's pretty damn critical, right? Because, well, GPUs required to store data, And in this case, it's using HBM2. So how much more? 4 gigabytes. So a single stack of HBM2 most likely. I'm certainly not going to read out all the specifications and performance because, quite frankly, I think you can see yourself. But this does tell us a couple of things. One, once again, this is not going to set the world alight in terms of performance, and that's not the purpose of these parts. The purpose of these parts is not to replace a high-end system that's got a Vega 56 or a GTX 1070 or whatever that's on a desktop. What the purpose of these is, of course, is to offer an awful lot of computing performance with a very low footprint, in other words, the actual size of it, with a decent battery. With a score of 76,607 on Geekbench 4.0.3, it does appear, at least in theory, that these, basically for creative individuals, this particular processor should be absolutely up your street, particularly because Vega in general is actually a really strong compute-orientated platform. Overall, we could certainly do a more in-depth dive about the performance, but until we get final confirmation that these results and, of course, specifications are accurate, I think that's just about enough on this particular subject. I will say, however, that it's nice to hear that it's confirmed, these rumours. I mean, they've been swirling around for months and months and months and months and months. And I think many of us at this point in time suspected that they were true. The denials from AMD and Intel were just, to be honest with you, quite weak. They took too long for them to deny it, and when they did deny it, it wasn't the type of verbiage that you would expect. It was kind of a weak, yeah, we're not planning on doing this, rather than absolutely not, we would not work with our competitors, hell no, not on your life. And also there was the pesky issue of the GPU patent from the perspective of Intel as well. So it looks like this was the most obvious solution for everyone involved. Speaking of obvious solutions, let's talk about the Xbox One X exclusivity issues, and also when it comes to the pre-orders of and sales figures of the Xbox One X. We're going to start things out actually with the Xbox One X. Now, starting things sales related, of course, the Xbox One has not done as well as the PlayStation 4, and that's putting it mildly. According to GameIndustry.biz, they predict very bullish movements on the Xbox One X. Michael Pachter, yes, I know some of you are probably groaning immediately, but there are others who have weighed in on this as well. But let's talk about Michael Pachter. He has upped his Xbox One X sales forecast from just 1 million up to 1.5 million. But also IHS Markit has also raised their numbers as well. I'm going to read this out verbatim. Feedback on pre-order volume for the Xbox One X and the Project Scorpio Xbox One X have led us to increase our 2017 sell-through forecast for the Xbox One X. The Project Scorpio limited edition pre-order strategy has been particularly effective in driving what is to be expected to be a robust launch week in key sales territories. IHS Markit has therefore increased its 2017 forecast from 500,000 to 900,000 units. At this level, Xbox One share of total Q4 2017 Xbox One family sales will be close to 20%. I'm assuming they made a slight typo there, and it's supposed to be an Xbox One X share of total 2017 Xbox One console family sales will be close to 20%, similar to the performance of the PlayStation 4 Pro at launch. If Microsoft outperforms and delivers sales in excess of this forecast, it will be considered a major launch success, end quote. Now, we're actually doing an unboxing of the Project Scorpio edition, and I actually have a couple of things to say. The first is that I am actually surprised with the build quality. I own a PS4 Pro, but I know some of you may disagree here, but it didn't really feel like a premium system. And yes, it's $100 cheaper on launch anyway than the Xbox One X, but still, it feels kind of like, it doesn't really feel high quality. With the Xbox One X, there were so many little things that I kept noticing about the system that just made it feel like a premium product. The second, and this is certainly not conclusive evidence, but when I went in to actually pick up Project Scorpio Edition console today, I I actually asked them, because a while ago I was speaking, when I was first pre-ordering the system, I spoke to an employee over at Game, which is a retailer here in the UK, and I asked them, hey, how many systems do you have available for pre-order total? Because he was trying to convince me to pre-order this thing. He said, you really should, it's very limited edition. We're only getting like 10 or 15 consoles in the entire store, and we've already basically burned through like 7 or 8 of them. I don't remember how many. So basically I was like number 8, and he wasn't 100% sure they were going to get more, but he knew for certain they were going to get 10. I said, okay, cool. Sure, put me down. I'll pre-order it. Right, why not? And I'll be honest, when he first said that, I thought, yeah, limited edition. Who cares? It's going to be a limited, as you know, a regular game release where it says it's limited edition. It's on store shelves for 3 months. It's not going to be limited edition at all. But sure, I'll put my name down because I want to buy the system anyway. And Project Scorpio sounds cool. So obviously it was becoming increasingly obvious that it was indeed a limited edition, and when I went back in to Game today to pick up the console, I did ask another individual, how many consoles did you actually have total in the store? And by golly gosh, he said, yeah, we only had 15 consoles. So it is a limited edition system, but the sales figures of Project Scorpio itself isn't really the key. It helped act as a marketing force and driving force for the sales of the Xbox One X. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty damn happy that I've pre-ordered the system and now got the system, despite the fact that I am a PC gamer. But, as we all know, there's been one criticism that Microsoft cannot shake when it comes to the Xbox division, and that is a simple one: exclusivity. I like the Xbox One. I think the Xbox One X is a cool system, but Sony have just been killing it recently with exclusives. I'm not saying the Xbox has none. I really enjoyed Halo 5, for example, but you know, when you're looking at the games which are coming up, for example, The Last of Us 2, it's very hard to argue that The Last of Us 2 looks amazing. And yes, of course, you've got Crackdown and so on, but with the shuttering of some really big projects, including Lionhead, it's been just kind of like, yeah, okay, we've got Gears of War, we've got Halo, we've got Crackdown, and, you know, whatever else, but we just want more. Well, according to Phil Spencer, he agrees, and I'm going to read out a quote verbatim. This is with an interview at Bloomberg. We need to grow, and I look forward to doing that. Our ability to create content is one of our best strengths, and we haven't always invested at the same level. We've gone through up and downs in that investment. Reading between the lines and whispers in the market, it appears that Microsoft have a couple of plans of doing this. The most obvious one is to essentially throw their big wallets around. In other words, they're just going to simply buy up studios. Now, how well this works, I mean, let's hope they don't do the EA approach, and I'm still kind of sad about Lionhead, but hey, if the purchases are made correctly, if they can utilize those games, those intellectual properties to make some awesome games, then I'm all for it. Obviously, that does mean that you're going to have fewer games on the PlayStation, but unfortunately, the reality of the console marketplace is that exclusives are what help sell a console. The other thing they're going to be doing is by forming new development studios internally. Let's face it, Microsoft, to their credit, have an awful lot of talent over multiple different fronts, so they can certainly pull in the required individuals to make successful studios. But one can definitely see a fundamental shift in how Microsoft have been approaching gaming. For example, Phil Spencer himself was promoted recently to the Chief Executive Officer's bestest buddy team, also known as a senior leadership team. This of course means that without any question to investors or to gamers, Microsoft's commitment to gaming is without a question. And don't forget that the software and services revenue of the Xbox division also grew by a rather impressive 21% in the last quarter. Now this is very impressive given that the console hardware sales have dropped. Why have they dropped? Well, there's a mixture of reasons, but I think most people would agree that if you had the cash available, buying an Xbox One S probably wasn't going to be the thing you were going to do. You were just going to simply wait for the Xbox One X, and quite honestly, I think that that probably would have been the best move to have done if you have a 4K television or you're planning to invest in one soon. Without a question, there's absolutely no point in buying an Xbox One S. And also, the other benefit to all of this, and I think many of you would probably agree, you're essentially getting an excellent level of choice at the moment. Nintendo are killing it with the Switch. Mario, Zelda have been amazing launches. You've got Doom coming out for the Switch. Bethesda, of course, are, well, pretty much going hell for leather on their Switch support. Ubisoft, same deal. They're supporting the Switch rather well. The PlayStation 4, I mean, whether you've got a vanilla PS4, a PS4 Pro, or a Slim, damn at the games on it. I mean, really. Even if you look at older titles like Bloodborne, if you look at games such as Until Dawn, which I admit probably wasn't quite up there where I'd expected it, but still, it's a pretty damn fun game, especially now it's quite cheap. And of course, we've just had Uncharted Lost Legacy, which was absolutely fantastic. You've got the upcoming Last of Us 2. I'm obviously missing tons of titles here. The Xbox One has had some awesome games as well. You've got the new Forza, Gears of War. In my opinion, Gears of War 4 was absolutely phenomenal. Microsoft have had a huge value proposition when it comes to the backwards compatibility of the system as well. For example, the original Xbox games. Yes, I admit it's not necessarily a console seller, but it's certainly a nice value proposition. Ultimately, this is only good for gaming, and perhaps also for PC as well, because being honest, if you're a PC gamer, Sony or Microsoft doing well is also going to benefit you, because an awful lot of games, for example Death Stranding, Street Fighter V and many others that were console exclusive ended up on the PC, and with the Xbox as well, you can argue the same thing. You've got games like Gears of War 4, which of course have also ended up on the PC. Sea of Thieves is going to end up on the PC. So in short, no matter what way you look at it, gaming is absolutely thriving at the moment, despite all the issues with loot boxes and microtransactions and all of that crap. In terms of the actual ecosystem for games, I think it's absolutely fantastic. With all of that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.